Okay, so it's nothing new. We'll be building a to-do application in this tutorial. So when we build this to-do application, you have basic understanding of how you should be thinking as a programmer. So I usually tell people that programming is more of a thinking than a coding. So if you don't even know what you want to do, don't code. It doesn't make sense. It's just like you are coding what you don't know. It doesn't even just make sense. So picture it in your mind that programming is an act of thinking. You think, then when you think, you can now decide to say, okay, let me code what the idea I have, or the process, your thought process, you now bring it into life. So just see that programming is an act of thinking. You're actually thinking. That is the most important tool in programming. I see a lot of people making mistake, and when I look at their code, I realize that they have a thinking problem whereby the way they even think of implementing or solving that problem is wrong from the beginning. And because their thinking is wrong, almost everything they do will be a kind of just messy and bad, and they'll just hack it to manage it to work, and it may work a little bit, it may not work very well, it will frustrate them, and they will say, guys, this programming is too hard and all those things. Yes, programming is kind of a little bit stressful, but if you get your thinking right, it becomes much more easier. So as I'm building this project, just begin to see how I am thinking. We are going to do it interactively, like I will be explaining to us how I do it. So for the record, it's not like I have the project somewhere and I will explain it to you. In fact, I am late because I'm coming from a church program, so I am just reaching my home, and in fact I'm eating while doing this. So I didn't plan or prepare for this. I just know that there will be a section so that when we start from scratch like that, hopefully within an hour we should be done. You will see how a programmer think and how a programmer do things. It's different from just coding. So want to build a simple to-do application. First of all, you need to understand what is a to-do application, right? So I will open a notepad. So in real life, any project you want to build, don't just rush and start building. Sit down and think about it. Even if it takes a long time, sit down and think about it. It's just this saying that is it from the book of Proverbs, I think. I'm not sure, but there's this saying that if you give somebody a tree to chop, like to cut a tree, the person that takes his time to sharpen his blade, his axe very well, he will apply less effort in cutting down the tree, right? And it will save him time. But if you say, "Ah, I'm in a haste, there's no time to sharpen this axe. I just want to cut it sharp, sharp." The person that, let's imagine, is two people. They gave two people blunt axe, and they gave them equal size of tree that they should cut it. The one that just rush, gara gara, just carry the axe and start hitting it, thinks that he's doing something. But the other wise person will sit down, sharpen his axe very well, and when he start cutting, he will cut it very easily and smoothly, and he will finish before the person that just rush and then sharp his blade and start cutting. Secondly, it's not just sharpening it, also there's an act, there's a way you cut it. I can remember those days when we my schoolmate is here also. You remember Isaac is here. Those days I attended full time boarding school, so they used to punish us a lot, give you three to cut or something. But I can remember there was a time they gave, in fact, the whole of our class assignment to approve three. But the experience there is that there is an act. You don't just go anyhow and start cutting. So I can remember that you have to cut it at least from one side so that you can draw the tree and to fall towards that side. There is a way it is. So One is you don't just rush and start cutting. And secondly, when you sharpen your blade and you start cutting, the way you cut it also will determine how fast you will fall the tree. So the same thing applies to programming. Don't rush and start coding. That is the first mistake people make. Sit down and plan whatever you want to do. No matter how small that project is, sit down and think about it. First of all, what are you building? That is the first question. You must understand the product you are building. If you don't understand the product, then why are you building it? So first of all, we need to understand what are we building. I'm building a to-do application, right? Then I will start, okay, I'm building a to-do application. Then you can use a notebook, anything. I prefer using text editor. And then I say I'm building a to-do app, or I can just call it, instead of just to-do app, I will say my to-do app. This thing is tiny. I don't know if there's a way to zoom. Okay. Control plus um, there no shortcut. I have never zoomed with this thing, so I don't want to zoom because of this stuff. It's not working as I think. Okay, let's manage it. Just understand that it's a thought process, so you are not like copying me or doing anything. So the name of the app is my to do app, or my to do anything. Now, what is the future? The future is that user should be able to add a to do, right? Secondly, user should be able to edit the to do they add, right? Edit a to do. And then thirdly, user should be able to delete a to do. In fact, before they can do all these things, of course, they should be able to see a to do, right? So user should be able to see their list of to dos, right? So this is what a to do application normally should do. It's just like you download a to do application on Play Store. Of course, from the beginning, it will be empty. You'll be the one to say, it will ask you, there will be a form whereby you need to type in what you want to do, right? And you click on save, then it will add it to the list of to do. So you can add several things you want to do for that day. So let's use a tool. Normally, you can use paper. You can use a paper and just sketch out whatever you want to do. But for this particular case, mm, so let me just use this. This is an example I showed us before about the layout of how an application, a normal web application usually will look. But for this to do app, we don't need any header, we don't need any left or right or even footer, we don't need anything. We just need a simple box, right? And this simple box will be our to-do app. So you can sit down. In real life, you don't just build application. That is where the work of UI UX comes in. We have UI UX guys that will design the application before the developers will go and build it. That is to save you the stress of, hey, you is it supposed to be left or right? Is it supposed to be green or blue? You are not supposed to be wasting your time thinking all those things. It's supposed to be done before coding. So this I'm trying to show us, this is an application I'm working on, a side project I'm working on, right? So you see this side project has the design already. So even before we built it, we we have a UI UX person that design the application, and they use Figma. So Figma is kind of a tool for software developers, right? Like it's for designers, but the design comes with the CSS properties. Like it will give you a lot of properties that are related to programming that you can use. So that is one advantage of Figma. So the UI UX guy designed this, and I was able to sit down and code it, right? So that is how it should work, even for smaller projects. It should work in a similar way. We are building a to-do app. We don't just jump and start building a to-do app. We just at least have a very basic picture of what you are building. So we definitely need a form, right? We need a form here whereby the user will enter, we type their to do, and then we will definitely need a submit button, right? We need a submit button, and then we can have a table, or yeah, we can have a list item, the list of to-dos here. This can just be a list of to-dos, and each of those lists will now have maybe an edit button where you can edit each of that to-do. So instead of list, it can be to-dos, right? And then this is one, two, three to-dos, and each of these to-dos will have what do you want to do? Read your books, and then in front of each of it, we can now have an edit button and then a delete button, right, for each of them. So this is giving us a picture of what we want to do. Do you get it now? I don't want to waste time. I'm just giving us an overview. So in real life, you take your time to sketch it, even if it means using paper and pen to just sketch it quickly, or if you know how to use graphic to design it quickly before you start coding. Why am I doing this? Is because if I start coding, I will not waste time start thinking of what and what to add. I already have it somewhere, then I will just start coding. So after you have a visual representation and you have a notebook whereby you list the features you want to do, then you can write the steps of how you want to achieve these things, right? So you can actually have steps. So I can say, hey, steps on how to implement this, right? Or they call it technical spec. So you can say it's a technical specs specification, or the way you want it to be. Then you can start listing them. I really don't have time to start doing that now. I'm just telling you how you should be doing it in real life. So once you do that, then you can go and start your project formally. So to start your project, and it's usually the project have to be in a new folder, and then I call it my to do. I'm rushing it because I'm not teaching you the coding. I'm showing you how you should do things. So I will call it my to do, and then I can open this folder in Visual Studio Code. Just right click and click on open with code. We have already explained that concept before, so I'm not explaining that anymore. So this my to do folder is the root of my application. So in the root of my application, a web application will always have an entry point, which is the index.html. So you can name it anything, but the convention is called index.html. That is seen as your home page. That is assumed to be your home page. Index.html will automatically be assumed as your home page or the root of your application when you upload it to a server. So that is just the old rules. So we create a simple HTML. The shortcut to create a template is just you press Shift 1, that will show this exclamation mark, and then you press tab on in Visual Studio. It will populate it like this with the basics HTML, and that is it. You can install live server so that whenever you save, you have your changes immediately. I believe most of us know that. I don't have live server because I'm saving my memory. So apart from having your index, you see I haven't started bothering myself with any coding. I just want to get the simple structure of this application ready before I even start coding. I know I definitely need index of HTML. Secondly, I know that I will add some CSS. So I will create a folder for what? CSS or styles. You can call them styles, right? I can create another folder for let's say JavaScript or scripts. Do you get it now? So inside my script, I can now add at least one script. I know I need it definitely. So I can create one script, just app.js. So by convention, some of us have not started JavaScript, I know, but app dot anything that ends with .js is JavaScript, and any file that ends with .css is CSS script. So it's CSS file. So I can name this styles.css, and I can come back to, let me make this a little bigger. All right, I can come back to my HTML and just ensure that everything is working for now. So what do I need? Usually, if you have your design, you look at your design. What is the first thing you need to do is your layout. Just ensure that if there's any layout, header, footer, sidebar, and maybe left and right bar, you first of all figure them out first before you start other things. So right now there's no layer. So all I need is just a simple a simple div with a border, and then everything will be inside, right? So I can just create a simple div, or I can name it main. So just know that there are some elements that have semantic meaning. So I can name it main since it's the main page. I can name it main. Main is like div, but it's just like your search engine will have some meanings to it. But if you wish, you can use div. All right, so I name it div main, and I can give it a class called container. So I haven't added CSS, but I just give it a class called container because by convention, don't type your styles inside uh, inside. Don't mix your styles with your HTML. It doesn't make sense. It makes your code messy. The shorter your code, the easier it is for you to understand it. If your code is so messy and is having several lines, it will confuse even you. So in as much as you can make it shorter and easier, always do it like that. And ensure that your Visual Studio have format on save, so that immediately you save it, it will arrange it for you in a good way. Because I see some people, the way their code is arranged is difficult to even read it. Let your code be as readable as anything for even you. All right, so I can call it container, and then in my CSS, I will add a class for container, and then that container will have a border, which is 1 pixel solid. Then just give it the gray, or I don't know which color. Any color will do, just a little gray, and it will have padding of 50 pixels, and then what else? I want it to be in the center. So let's see if margin auto will work. I'm not sure, I'm just doing it. All right, so our HTML and CSS are not linked, so it may not yet work. Let's view it in a browser. I can still view in browser here. So let me just open it directly. So we don't have anything, so it's empty as expected. And the border is not even working because we don't even have any content. So at the beginning, uh, we'll just create a H1 and call it my to do app and save it and see if we are going to see anything. Okay, we can see my to do app, but our container is not working because we can't even see the border, and that is because we haven't linked it. So as a first rule, always put your CSS to be part of your head. So I will just add styles. I will just link CSS and I'll call it, so use Visual Studio to your advantage. It will always suggest it for you, and then just follow the suggestion. It will definitely be right. Okay, so this is it. This guy is occupying everything because the body doesn't have like a width or anything. So you can style this manually. I believe a lot of you guys are already learning CSS, so you know how to make this guy to be in the center, format it to be fine. But in real life, we don't spend time doing that because it is not your. We are, even though we are building a to-do app, we are not we are not graphic designer that will come and start styling things. I see some of us, yes, we are learning CSS. It's good to try out things, but anything that is colorful, it doesn't make sense. So you are not really a graphic designer that is doing hand-based or publishing magazine and all those things that will be colorful. Simplicity is the best. Just take it. Simplicity is the best. Go to top sites, you'll see that they are very simple. And the main thing is for your functionality to be working. So what you are doing should work. So I'm not here to start styling. If I style this to do have to be very fine, colorful, is the to do is dancing and is moving like having disco light and shining and have fine background, it doesn't make sense if it doesn't work. So first rule is let it even work. No matter how ugly it is, let it work. So in real life, I will not code this thing with pure CSS from scratch. It doesn't profit me anything. So you install Bootstrap. If you haven't used Bootstrap, just go to getbootstrap.com. Bootstrap is just a CSS framework. So all these classes, right? By convention, you are supposed to be adding classes to your elements, and then you will come to your styles and you will implement the CSS for that class. That is how you are supposed to be styling your things. But instead of you coming here to be writing the styles, CSS, they have already written the styles for what they assume people will always be using. So the most commonly things they imagine that a developer need, they created a class for it and they already added the style. So if I need to add margin, I don't need to come and create a CSS. Maybe I'll create a CSS for margin top, and then I say I want it to be 20 pixels, and then I will now say, okay, this is margin top 20 pixel, and then I'll go and carry this guy and apply it to my HTML. So okay, this guy should have this class. Yes, it will work, but it doesn't make sense because you have to do this for, imagine how many margin top, margin bottom, margin right, margin left. So the summary of it is that you don't waste time doing those things. People have done it and there's something that is working perfectly. Just use it. So that is what Bootstrap is. Bootstrap provides you with classes that have solved most of the CSS things you always do. So there's classes for almost anything. For your containers, it will arrange your containers. For your grid, it will arrange your work in, it will give you grid on, it will give you columns, gutters, typos. You have CSS for your typo. Typos is like typography, your text. So you want your text to be different sizes. It has a class for you already. You want to design button. I believe some of us are already struggling with how to design. As simple as this button is, if you want to style it with pure CSS, it will take a lot of time. So come on, and you can have a very fine button like this by just applying a class called BTN primary. So there's few rules. If you haven't used Bootstrap before, you have to go and read the rules. So you don't. So there is always a parent class and then a child class. So for all buttons, buttons will always have BTN. BTN is like the base class. Then you can now say which type of button. BTN primary with this blue one, BTN secondary, this one, BTN success, this color. So the colors also are consistent. Primary is always blue, secondary is gray, success is green, danger is red. So it's consistent in Bootstrap. So if you don't know Bootstrap and you learn CSS, you don't jump CSS because Bootstrap is actually a CSS framework. So it would be stupid and foolish to say, I want to jump CSS and go to, you don't know CSS, you want to start using Bootstrap. It doesn't make sense. So that's why it's advisable you learn CSS. But once you understand the basic to intermediate of CSS, you leave it. In real life, you will not be using CSS to do everything. You will use a framework, Bootstrap, Material. There are a lot of them uncountable. So that is what I will just quickly add to this project. I'm also showing you how to add framework or a package to your project. So if you look at Bootstrap, let's look at their getting started introduction. And I will explain to you blah blah blah. I'm not ready for the explanation. Downloads. So you can actually download the entire CSS of Bootstrap. You can download the source. Look at it. You can download the source. So if you download this source, it will download CSS. I told you Bootstrap is just CSS file that they have already added the classes they assume you will be needing. So once you have it, all you need to do is to be applying. You learn those classes so that anytime you want to use it, you will apply the class and it will work. So let me see how this guy looks quickly. Just see, once I install this Bootstrap, you will see how fast. I know that we may be saying time has gone, but you'll be surprised at how fast we build stuff. So this is the source file. I come to CSS. So I can just copy this Bootstrap. So when you download it, there is always inside this and CSS. So the source is, it contains a lot of things, but I don't care. I only need the CSS, which is inside this folder and inside CSS. Then I can just copy bootstrap.css. Once I copy this bootstrap.css, and then I come to where my to-do is, I come to styles, and then I paste it. There are different ways of adding it. You can just add the URL. So if you can look at it, there are different ways. You can use npm. Some of us, npm will be new since we are not used to JavaScript. You can use different method to add Bootstrap, but the easiest is just download the CSS, bootstrap.css, and paste it in where your program is. It's not heavy, so that is why I did that. So I have bootstrap.css here. So you can look at it. Bootstrap is just, you can even look at their CSS. This is just CSS. So they wrote CSS for a lot of things. They style your H for you, they style everything. They even give you media queries, which will help you to build a responsive site. So for instance, this site I built, the one that built this site, right? I use CSS to build this site. And if you come to this site, for instance, the site is very responsive. It's very responsive. So it's a demo site, so don't worry. So you see, this is, I'm viewing it on desktop. It's looking like this. And if I change it to mobile view, you can just open your developer console environment and click on mobile view, you see it didn't look good on mobile. It's not like I style the mobile differently and then I style. No, it's Bootstrap I use. Bootstrap already, I give it Bootstrap class that if the view is mobile view, show it like this. If it is desktop view, show it like this. So when you learn Bootstrap, you build like very responsive application. You see, this application is responsive because in real life, mobile view should not allow the user to be moving left or right horizontally. They should only move vertically. So if you build your application and when it is being viewed on mobile, the person will need to scroll left and right. It means the application is bad, is wrong. The person should only be able to view up or down. That is how mobile phone work. All right. So I'm just telling you how powerful Bootstrap can be. Uh, so that is what all these media queries does. They gives you breakpoint where to hide something and where to show something based on the view of that device. All right, so enough of Bootstrap. Please go and learn after you learn CSS to basic and intermediate. Please learn a framework, Bootstrap or anyone, but Bootstrap is the simplest. So just learn Bootstrap. So right now I'm going to link Bootstrap. So just type link and then I'll just add it dot styles slash bootstrap css. So bootstrap should come before your own style so that you can override anything. You know, in css the order matters in css. So this container now that I put, I don't need it in my own because bootstrap will give me a container. Okay, so this margin top, I don't need it. I will just use bootstrap's class when I need margin. So I'll just save this guy and let's refresh. So you see everything is different. You may not notice, but there is now a container. This thing is not starting. So in real life, your application shouldn't start from, shouldn't, they should have an edge. There is always a width they call container. It gives you a width for a real life application. There are times where maybe necessity they will allow it to cover the entire screen, but most of the time it's not supposed to cover your entire screen. So the container class is what makes this guy to give little margin here. There will also be another margin here. All right. Enough of Bootstrap. So I'll be using Bootstrap classes to do a lot of styling. So just know if I am applying any class, just know that it is Bootstrap class. You will go and learn it later on in future. All right. So let's go back to our layout. So I'm trying to design, okay, I have a title, then I will have a form and a button, right? So we already have our title here. Wow, time is really flying. We have our title. So if I want this guy to be in the center, I'll just apply the bootstrap class, text, center, save, and refresh. It's in the center. I need it to give us some margin at the top. Just say empty. Empty is for short for margin top. And then I say give a margin top 5 pixels. So it's not using pixels, sorry, it's using rem. So you know we have different units of measuring in CSS. So, okay, so you see it gives me margin like as simple as ABCD. I want it to have a border at the bottom. I just say give me border button. Save it. Okay, maybe I need to install live share. Okay, I don't like it. Think live server. I think I will need it now. Which one is the right one? Live server. Is it this guy? Okay, 1 minute. Hopefully it should be done. All right, so I know it has been quiet all this while. Any question? Any questions so far? I know I'm rushing, but that's why I'm recording it so that we can go through it, take our time to understand it as well. All right. So we are using live server now. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. So I install live server so that I don't need to be refreshing every time. So um, I don't know if my main is already okay. Let me give the body content. Okay. Enough of styling. Let me just go straight to implementation. So I'll have a div, and inside this div, I'm going to have an input which is of text, and it will now have a button which is going to have add to do, right? Save it. So this is how it will look by default. HTML will design it like this, but just see the magic when I add CSS Bootstrap class to it. Class from control, then I save it. You see this guy now changed to something more beautiful, but it's covering the entire space, so I don't want it to do that. So in Bootstrap I will use div row, then div column. Let me just, row is the entire line, so I don't want to use the entire line. I want to use just let me use maybe 4, that's 1/3, and then I move these guys inside it and then refresh. So it's covering 1/4. I want it to be at the center. So justify content. So row by default is flexible. So I just need to be in the center now. So this button, once I just add class btn primary, see it has been styled properly. You see it now. To make them to be in the same line, so maybe I'll just add dflex. So dflex will change it to display flex. So you see the Bootstrap classes are easy to remember if you are using them because they have meaning. So dflex means display flex. And yeah, this guy is looking ugly. Okay, instead of that, maybe I'll just use column for that guy. So div column 2, I'll put a button in a different column. So you see, I'm just thinking this thing now. I'm doing it. It's not like I have done it before. So then I'll just be rushing it because of our time. So it's not too bad, right? It's looking good. This guy we need a margin at the bottom of 3. Yeah, margin 5 even. And then you need padding button 2. All right, this is good. So here I'll add a placeholder, add a new to do. Or what do you want to do? Okay, so it's looking good, right? Yeah. So this one is where the form that I will be adding it. So we'll create another row. This is called Zen coding when you are writing div and the classes at the center. So just write it somewhere, Zen coding, and go with it. All right, we'll have the row, and then this guy will div column 4, column 6. All right, so yep, justify content center. Okay, I should make this h3. Then I will have maybe ordered list or ordered list. And then li times 3. Then I'll say go to market, wash some clothes, and then what, take your bits. All right, so it's not that bad. Okay, so there should be some gap. This guy should have margin bottom 5. All right, so this is how a basic to-do app should look, right? We have our title, we have our form where we can add a new to-do, right? And click on add to submit it. Then we have the list of to-dos, which is this. So the first feature we are trying to implement is user should be able to see their list of to-dos. Okay. Now we just made it static because we just assume no any functionality, no JavaScript, no functionality for now. Everything is fine. Okay. So now that this basic to do is working, the edit and delete, of course, we can style this later on, definitely. But let's first of all display the list of to dos first, then we can now talk of styling it and making it to look good. All right, so let's at least ensure that when you add it to do and click on add to be added to this list. That is the first functionality that should work. All right, now you should know that the browser only knows when a user interacts with an element using an event, and we have JavaScript that handles that. So JavaScript handles users event. So when user click on something, when user type, when user focus or hover on something, or when a user click, it is JavaScript that actually handles all those stuff. So that is what we'll be using. So all this while we'll be using CSS with Bootstrap. But next, we'll need JavaScript so that when the user types something here, and they click on add to do, then we will be able to add the to do to this list. So that is the beauty of JavaScript. JavaScript joins things together and makes them to work. So you may be using JavaScript. The most important part of JavaScript when it comes to web development is JavaScript can manipulate all the elements here. You can use JavaScript to remove all of them, add anything you want to add. So you can add an element, change the color, change the style. You can do several things. So you can modify everything here using JavaScript. So that is how powerful JavaScript can be. So first of all, we are going to link our JavaScript. So to link it, just type console.log in your JavaScript, hello world, and then you link it and then be sure that it works. So by default, always add your JavaScript at the bottom. That is because JavaScript sometimes take time to load. And secondly, JavaScript will be trying to modify your HTML, and you want to make sure that this HTML has been loaded first before JavaScript is loaded. Else, JavaScript will say, hey, I can't find the body. Why you have body? But if you put JavaScript at the top, it will not find it. So let's add a script. So just select script with source, and the source is going to be script app.js. All right, you save everything, open your console, F12, go to your console in your developer tab. You see hello world, which means our JavaScript is linked correctly. So that is the first proof. If your JavaScript is not linked correctly, you will just be wasting your time because things will not be working. So first rule, confirm that it's linked correctly. Now that we know that it's linked correctly, then we can now start working. Next is to say okay when the user click on app to do, right? So HTML by default gives us the attribute on click. So on click, you can confirm that the click is even working by just typing alert hello world. save it. The hello world is not yet in JavaScript. It's just when you type on click, you can write a function, a short function. So alert will show an alert. So you see hello world. So the on click is working because sometimes the spelling, some people can miss it. So right now we know that it is working, right? Okay. So in uh, our app here we have functions, and those functions will be available for us here in our HTML. So when you add a function here, you are expected to get it here. So let's try it. I know there are some few rules, there are some best practices. I don't want to go into very advanced JavaScript because most of us are beginners. So let's just try. I will be using the old, like the simplest way that is easy to understand. So add to do is a function, right? And let's just console.log. So you always use console.log to know if things is working. Just take it as a general rule of thumb. Adding to do's to do. So if this console.log on your console, you know that this function is being called. You will get it now. It means you have linked it successfully. So let's try it and see. I doubt if it will even work. I just want to try it so that let's see. So I click and it say adding to do. Okay, it works. So in JavaScript, just know that a function is a code that is not executed. It's a block of code. It will not be executed unless you call it. So this place we are only describing it. It will not be called unless you call it. And how do you call it? You call the name, you write the name of the function, then you put this bracket, then it will call it. Sometimes you can pass parameters to it, like values to it. But in this case, we don't have any values, so it just work. All right, so it's adding to do is working for us to see it. It means when they click, we are linking it, we are calling this function. Now, when they click, we want to get what the user type here. So JavaScript have that power. You can get what the user type there by using document. So your entire HTML is wrapped inside a function called document. So document gives you access to document is actually a class that gives you access to a lot of things. But the most important thing is it gives you access to your entire HTML elements. So you can get any element by different method, either by the name of the element, or by the class of the element, or by the ID of the element. But it's advisable that if you are targeting only one element, use the ID so that you know that you are getting only that one. I told you before that and your entire page should have only a unique ID for each of them. So if you're applying ID to this text, you shouldn't apply that same ID to another element, right? So we're going to add ID to this guy, and we're going to call it uh, to do input. Anything to do input. Let's call it to do input, where they input the to do, right? So we are going to use document, and document have methods that we are going to call. Sorry if it's still new to you. I'm trying to help you to understand how what you are learning you can join it together to do something powerful. So that when you are learning it, it will not be like boring this thing. When will you even use it? So that is why I'm telling you this. Some of us already know it, some doesn't know it. So just endure. So document.get element by ID. You see, this thing is plain English. So if you follow it, it's easy actually. So we save the element in a variable called input element, right? And hopefully, let's be hopeful that the element. So if you don't, you have to go and add this ID to do input. So you can name it anything. Add an ID to your input and come here and say document or get element by that ID that you added, then it will be saved in a variable. Then inside that variable, if the variable exists, in fact, let's do console.log input element. If we can get it, it means we are actually getting what they type here, right? So now our time is going. Let's see. Maybe if I can't finish this time, I'll pass to you guys as assignment. All right. So it you see, adding to do is called. That means when we click on it, we have confirmed before that this line is being called. So secondly, we have confirmed also that this line, this app.js dot line 4. So line 4 is also being called. So we have console.log. You see, this is the entire input. You see, so it means we actually got the entire of this form, the code of this form. Look at it, input, type, text, placeholder, class, ID. So we are actually, so it means your JavaScript has gone to your HTML. It went and searched for any element that have an ID to do input. It saw it, then it copy it all into an object, and we save it as input element. That is why when I do console.log, it was able to see it here. But it's an object, it's not an HTML. So let me do input element dot value. So dot value is when I click on it, it will be empty. You see, it was logged, but it was empty. Value is what the person typed. So if I type go to market and I click on add, you see go to market shows here. So it means we are getting what the person typed here. Immediately the person type it and click on add to do, we are getting it in our JavaScript function. So it means you are already a step closer to solving your problem, right? One, you have solved the problem whereby anytime the person types something, you will what? Get it in your JavaScript. That is the first step. So you see, it's an act of thinking. You first of all think it one step at the other. If you don't, first of all, when you must link your JavaScript, right? Secondly, when they click on this button, you must be sure that it's working. Thirdly, when they type something here, you should be sure that you can get what they type in your JavaScript. Then initially, this to-do list will always be empty from the beginning. It's just because I put empty things. In fact, let me delete them so that you know that of course your to-dos should be empty, right? This is how it should be from the beginning because the person haven't added a to-do. This is when they say go to market and click on add, then it will be added to this list. But right now we are getting what the person typed inside our JavaScript. So I told you JavaScript can manipulate, can even create element that doesn't exist. That is how powerful JavaScript is. So we have gotten what the person typed, right? What the person typed is, so let's call it to do text is equal to input element dot value, right? So let me just console.log to do text. So as a beginner, just do plenty console.log so that you know where your script have executed up to. And so that in case this thing did not show, I know that I made a mistake somewhere. You get it? Maybe I failed this to do, I didn't spell it well. And then I come here and I type something and I click on this. You see, it even broke. It didn't work. It breaks because it couldn't find any element with this ID because I didn't spell it correctly. And I'm trying to call value on what doesn't exist. And that is why it's giving me null error. So don't be scared of error, just they are simple things. But if I get my code, correct it, and I type it and press add to do and press add to do, it shows here, which is correct. So always take it one step at the other. If the other step didn't work, every other thing we are doing doesn't make sense. All right, so we are getting what they type. I'm rushing it. I don't think we have enough time anymore. All right, so now that we have gotten it, we want to display what the user type and add it to this list. So we need to get the parents. This OL is the parent. So I need to come here and add an OL. And there's already an OL or that list, right? And then I'll give it an ID to do list. Is the parent is what is going to be holding the list. So I'll call it to do list. Then I'll come here and do cons to do or list elements, just a short form of list element. Document does get element by ID to do list. It is the parent. It is this OL now that I've gotten. I want to add things inside it. So to add that thing, that element I want to add doesn't exist. So I have to create the element. So I'll create an element, call it list and item. Right, that is the li, the list item I want to create inside, right? And then I'll say document dot create element. And what is the name of the element? Li. So that li I create will be empty also, right? It's just like you come here and you type li. Of course it will be empty, you need to give it something, right? But what should be inside should now be the thing that the user type. So I'll say list item dot, is it contents? I can't remember, but let me try test content and see. Test content should be to do text. And then let me see. So the parent now say list elements, that is the our parent dot append child. Append child is like adding this new li to it. So append child list item. Hopefully, let's see it works. I was thinking I would take more time, but so it's empty. Oh, why is it showing number one? Oh, I type one empty li here. So it should be empty from the beginning. So when the person say go to market and click on add to do, and then it shows. Perfect. So we have been able to use JavaScript to read what the user type, and then when they click add, we read that okay, the user have clicked it. Then we read what we add, and then we add it to this guy. So you see, we are using JavaScript to read our HTML, to copy something, the value, to create an element that doesn't exist and add it inside a parent element. That is how powerful JavaScript can be. We can use it to style the list, we can use it to do several things. So the only thing that is remaining is now that they have go to market, I should clean what is here. So I have access to the element already. You see now I'm reading the value. So I can come back and let's say reset form. So you can add comment to your code to make it readable for yourself. So I'll just say impute element dot value equals to empty. Then let's say go to shop. You click on add to add it, and it will reset the form as it cleans the form. Then the next one is wash your clothes. And yeah, the next one is what? Go and sleep. Okay, perfect, right? So it's working. This is how it is. So right now, I just got it to work, but my code is not clean. So there's what we call refactoring. Refactoring is changing your code to work better, maybe to look better, to work better, to be cleaner and more readable. Readable is as good as anything though, because in the next 2 3 months, if you come back to your code, you yourself you'll be asking yourself, what did I do here? I can't even remember what I do here. So that is why you should always name it in something to something you will remember. Very easy to remember and clean. You see, Oyibo get sense, so they are naming things get element by ID. It looks long, but it makes more sense because you will remember always that okay, this guy is going to get an element by the ID. So that is how you should be naming your things also. You name your elements or your variables to be very meaningful and easy for you to remember. In fact, even if somebody that didn't write this code come here, you should be able to know that this code has a function called add to do. Okay, this guy is what is going to be adding it to do. It will get the elements get the input, get the value. Okay, to get the parent element, the list element, and then it will create a list item, and then it will add this text into it, and then it will append that list element to the parent, and then it will reset the form. That is why sometimes it's good to also write comment. Comment is redundant sometimes because if you name your element and variables and function correctly, the like this function now is already hard to do. It doesn't make sense for me to come and write another comment, say hard to do. You see, it's redundant. It doesn't make sense. So that is why if you name things correctly, you may not need to add comment. You only add comment to explain why you are doing it. Maybe that is just it. So for this example, I can just say get the text, the user type, and then yeah, I can say get the parent list list element and add a new list item element with the text. You see, I'm explaining what I'm doing, not that I'm just writing shortcut. And then once it works, you can remove your to-dos, your console.log, because you put them to log things to know that it's working. But now that it's working, you can remove them. Save it. When you do refactoring, you shouldn't break what is working no, because you come and refactor and spoil it. So I add, it works. Add, it works. So I will not be able to do the edit and delete in this particular class. Definitely to take time. So I think I'm gonna stop here, and I will give that as you guys assignment. Once you enter JavaScript and you get to this point, then you can try to do your own to-do app. Your to-do app will contain the CRUD operation. There's what I call CRUD. C-R-U-D. It's not what I call, it's a common word in, in programming. C stands for create. You see, we are able to create a to-do, right? That is the C. Read, we are able to display it. That is the R. U, that means we should be able to update it. It doesn't make sense that you add something you can't update it. That is by editing it. And then D stands for delete. You should be able to delete anything the user add. Do you get it now? So just like when you go to Facebook, right? When you go to Facebook, for instance, you should be able to create a post. You should be, oh shit, my Facebook is not even. Okay, you should be able to create a post. You should be able to see that thing you create. You should be able to edit it and delete it, isn't it? So this that is why to do app seems simple, but it's very powerful. It teaches you how to read, how to create, read, update, and delete. And this is a basic functionality in every application you are building. Think of any application, there's always a create, read, update, delete. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, any application has this functionality. So if you learn how to do that, it means you can build a lot of applications. So I've done the create and the read. You guys will do the update and the delete. That is your assignment when you get there. It's not like you should start it now and then you run away. All right, so and then I was explaining refactoring. When you refactor, ensure that you don't break what is working. That is one of the rules. Secondly, this code, if you want to do update and delete, it will be difficult because we are just displaying this thing. We are not saving the to-dos in our JavaScript, which is bad. So if you want it to the update and the delete should work, it means you should be saving these guys in our JavaScript so that anytime they want to edit and delete, it will be easier. Right now, if we want to edit, we have to come and copy this guy again from HTML, try to edit it, and then insert it again. It will be difficult and it may not even work as expected. So the best thing to do is in this my JavaScript, I am supposed to have an array. There's what we call an array of to-dos. So the array is just a list of something. You create an array using this square bracket. So initially the array of to-dos will be empty, and then I will create another function to what? To display to-dos that we will initially call at the beginning. So when you can create a function and you can also call that function immediately. So we are creating it and we are calling it. So the use of this function is at the beginning is going to search through all the list of to-dos and it will display them. And then the list of to-dos can be just plain text, yes. But in real life, it should be an object because the to-dos will have their own state. It will have text, it will have who added it, the time he added it, and then whether it has been completed or not, right? So you can add a lot of things to to-do. So it's not just update and delete. You can give it a color green. Once they complete it, they click on check or completed, it changes to green, right? You can abandon it and it will change to blue, yellow or something. So because you know that each to do is going to have not just a text, it's going to have the date and other things. In JavaScript, it's better you use a list of objects. Do we get it now? So initially it will be empty. The list of objects will be empty. But this display to do's, its own work is going to say for each element, right? So you are actually looking at the to-dos arrays, and then JavaScript will go through each of the elements in this to-do arrays and say for each to-do, right, we are going to execute this function, right? We are going to get the parent, first of all. We are going to get the parent. We don't need to create the parent for each of the to-dos, right? So we just get the parent once, and then we for each of it, we are going to create an element, an li element. Oh shit. We are going to create an li element, and the li element, this to-do list, is going to come from these to-dos right now. So it will be to-do dot text, and we append this guy, and we'll call this dot append child, and this guy. Um, okay, let me refactor it right now. Maybe in the next 5 minutes we'll wrap up. Because this class is getting too long. I know some people are already sleeping, maybe. Okay, so get element and blah blah blah. So instead of this, I'll just say to do's dot push. Okay, let me create const to do object is equals to have text, which is equals to do text dot, okay, just to do text, and then I'll say to do's dot push. Don't worry, when you get to this point you will enjoy this class. So to do the push to do object, and then I'll reset the value, and then render to do on UI. Then I'll call display to this. Okay, so let me try it. I think I made a mistake, but let's hope it works. So go to market, click on add, it works. Go to shop. Okay, it's adding it twice. Okay, but somehow it's working because the problem here is that I'm supposed to empty what is already added here. So this guy here is, we are trying to append child. Okay, create this. So this to-do list should probably be in the parent. Maybe it should just be an empty list, an empty div with the id to do list. So this OL doesn't even exist. So that is what I think I need to do. Right? Um, okay, maybe I don't need to do that. So easy, even for me that you guys think I know everything. I have to think and brainstorm. So this guy is empty. So probably before we add a new one, right? We need to empty, before we add a new one, we need to empty this old one. I think that is what I need to do. So append child. I can't remember how to do that. So element.html content or inner HTML is empty. For now, I'm just trying to hack it, like empty it by hack. I believe there is a better way to do that. Okay, so it's now working because I empty it. Okay, so what I'm doing is before I add, because this guy is going to always, this display to dos is always going to display everything. So we are saving all our to dos in an array of objects called to dos. So anytime we call display, display will go through these arrays from the beginning and then it will look for the parent, empty it, and then add everything afresh. That way we always have it consistent, it will not duplicate anything. That is the advantage. Now, but because I'm using array of objects, instead of just text, I can display the date. So each time they add it, just say date, I'll say created at, I'll just create new date object, right? And then instead of my li just containing this test to do test, my li I can actually add more than that. So I can just say, okay, it contains to do the text, and then it can contain the date created at, and it contains to do dot created at, and I can save it. So this is the end of the class. So what do I want to do? Go to shop. Okay, it added the dates, but it's adding the entire dates with West Africa. Is it to daytime look? I have even forgotten how to do that thing. Let me see. Cons X equals to new date. So X dot to date string. All right, so I can use to date string. To date string. All right, so go to church. Yeah, and then I take date. So anytime you're adding it, it will use your current date. Okay, it should be date time. I don't care. But you get how it works. So I just it. So this brings us to the end of our to-do app. So in real life also, when you create an application, you don't just abandon it. There's what we call Git. You use Git to track the versions of your applications. Apart from that, you can use it to push your application online so that if somebody want to see it, you just send them the link to that GitHub. So right now, I will be pushing this guy and I will be sending it to the platform for us also so that we can have access to it anytime we want. So to add it to Git is very simple. Just say Git init. Be at the sorry, I'm not at the root, so it doesn't make sense. Be at the root, like your terminal should be at the root. Open your command prompt or terminal. The easiest way is in this place, you see control backtick. Oh, sorry, it's at my root, right? Look at it here. Control backtick. Backtick is the key before one. So once you do it, it will open your command line here. So once you type git init and press enter, you have added git to this. You are telling git that okay, track this project. So that is why you see when you come to this icon, you see it's tracking them here now. So once you take git to track it, git is now tracking it. You have to save it. Git is now tracking, but it's not saving it. So you have to save it. So to save it, you say git commit. So commit is like saying save, and then you put dash m message. But all these commands, I know some of us know like commands. So you can just come here in Visual Studio and type the message initial to do project, and then you can click on this good. It's for commit. It's like save. Then you click on save to ask you. You say yes. So now you have saved it, but it is not. It's only in your computer. It's not online. Now, I'm not afraid of losing my computer today. You know why? Because almost everything I did is on my GitHub account. So GitHub is different from Git. Git is a technology for tracking your code changes and saving it. GitHub is an online platform where you can actually upload that anything you save with Git, you can upload it here for future reference, and then other developers can work on it and a lot of advantage. So just know that they are two different things. GitHub is a company that provides this online platform. All right, so this one now, I have saved it in my own local system, right? But I can come to GitHub, click on new repository, and then say Tech for Change to do app. So just give it a name. Let it be public. Private is if you don't want anybody to see it, but public, I want everybody to see it. And then I click on create repository. Leave everything the way it is. Click on create repository. Now, for a new project that you haven't started, you can use this first command. But my own, I've already started it. I already have the repository. Like I've saved it locally, so I'll just copy these three lines. Just copy it. I don't even waste time. Copy and paste and press enter. It will automatically run those commands and push it. So it has pushed it. So if I come here, I click on the title, you will see what I have done. You see, this is HTML. You can look at it. So basically, what I have done is now online. Anybody can see it because I made it public. So you can come here and clone it. Actually, you can come to this project and you can clone it, and within 1 minute you will also have it in your computer and you can continue working on it. So I'll be sending the link to the platform. Where's our platform? Tech4Change software, and this is our to-do app. So this brings us to the end of our class. Um, sorry it took this long. I didn't even know it would take this long. But I guess I'm trying to explain a lot of things which is new to you guys. So that is the challenge. All right, so I think let's listen to a few questions before we call it a day. So, any questions so far? Any question? Even though it's late, just ask your question. This date, I don't like the way it's shown. So, it's not a date string actually. Let me use to local to. We can't hear you. Are you trying to say something? Okay, I can hear you. Okay, what did you get confused about? Okay, if you are new to it, it will be too fast, right? Just know the steps. The step is your project is not in Git. Do you get it? Open, open your. Can you mute your mic? I can hear myself. So open your project. Just press Control backtick. That means the key before one, or you can right click here and click on Open in Terminal. Right? So the essence is you want to open your command line, but it should be at the project root. Can you see it now? So once you are in the root of your project, that is the first folder in your project, then you can type git init. You are telling it initialize git. This one git already exists. That's why I say re-initializing exists. So git already exists. It doesn't make sense to even do git init. So when you type that command, Git is already saying, okay, we are aware of your project. Because at first, Git doesn't know if you have a project or not. So Git init is just short for initialize. You're initializing it. It will create some hidden files that you don't know to track it. Now that it's tracking it, you save it. I say come to this icon here. When you hover on it, you see the icon name is source control. You will see the file that you change. Right now, we don't have any new changes. If I change anything, it will show it here. Then you type the message, type any message, anything that is meaningful, maybe initial project or initial to do anything. Then you click on commit. Commit is like saying saving it. Now you have saved it in your own computer, but it's not online. Do you get it now? Now, if you want that code, it's not like you are launching the website to get, it's different from launching your website. This one we are talking about is files, your source file. You know, source files, you see, it's not showing us the to-do app here. It's showing us just the files, exactly what we have in here, isn't it? That is what is showing here, isn't it? So you just come here, you click on add new repository. When you click on add new repository, you type the name, any unique name, you type it. It will tell you whether the name is available or not. Leave it to be public. Click on create. When you click on create, you just copy these last three. I don't want to start explaining it. So the easiest is just copy these last three commands. Go and paste it back at that command line where you do your init. It will automatically push it. Once you have internet, it will push it for you. So that is just it. You can read more about it. I know if it's new to you, it may look a little confused. So I'm telling you, I'm only showing you the things you can do. I don't really have the time to begin to teach you each line or each thing. So I am expecting that if you are not conversant with Git, I already show you how powerful and important Git is. You can go and read more about it. Do you get it? So that is it. Are you clear? All right, so what a long meeting. I think it took us 1 hour, 30 minutes for the actual practical. That is not too bad. Any other question? Come on, all the people don't run. Okay, this is funny. Hello, I can hear you. I can hear you. About what? And it's because, yeah, so it's advanced for you, right? So you just have to be patient, study JavaScript, understand. So I'm doing this to just tell you how sweet it can be when you begin to connect HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's very powerful. So just see what I did and know that you can do this thing if you learn it gradually. Do you get it? I'm recording this section, so I will upload it now. Let me stop the recording so that it doesn't get too long. So I'm recording it. I will upload it and we can go through it anytime. Do you get it? Yeah, so I think we'll call it a day. So thank you all for your time. I will upload it and do have a good night rest. Bye. All right, good night. Thank you.